This is our first video in our series for creating a residential asset for city skylines. In this video we'll be using Google Maps to find a reference photo for a model that we want to build, and SketchUp Make 2017 to actually model that out. Now there's two approaches that you can take when creating any asset. You can base it off of something that's real world, or you can be your own creator and design something that's straight from your imagination. I'm not that creative, so we'll go ahead and use Google Maps and find a house that we want to build out. So we can zoom into any area to find a good residential area, and then we can go into satellite view to really hone in. Looks like there's a lot of residential in here. We can zoom in even further. You find some interesting architecture, an interesting roofline that you want to build out. And then you can grab your guy from the lower right hand corner, click and drag him out, and any street that turns blue is a street where you can drop him. So let's drop him down right here. And now we're in street view. So now you can see the various homes that are on the street. If you want to navigate around, you'll see that the icon is following our cursor. We can drive down the road a little ways, and you can find a home that way. Once you found a home that you want to design, you can take a look at it here, use your scroll wheel to start scrolling out, and you can go into a 3D view of that home. Now you can pan around here, or hit the control key and orbit around the object. Now these homes are really nice, but there's a lot of trees in the way, so we can't really see the backs of the homes. Yeah, it looks like we can see that one. So this gives you a good idea of all of the windows that are available, what the back of the house looks like. The models aren't generated 100% accurately, and if you have any trees in the way, it could really obscure your view. And this house looks incredibly complex anyway, so it's not something that would be a good candidate for the tutorial we're making today, since we want to build a home that has a little bit of complexity, but is simple enough that you'd be able to build out. So I've already selected this home in Florida. It looks like a nice home. It doesn't look like it's extremely large, and it's got some good southeast architecture to it, something that's missing in the game. So you can do the same here. We can scroll out, since we're in street view, to go into a 3D view. And using control, we can kind of see that home, rotate around it, and just see what that home looks like. I'll jump back to street view here by scrolling in. You'll see it has an interesting roof line. It's not overly complex. It's a flat roof here, and then it jumps up to a second elevation here, moves over. It's a nice simple single-story house, and I think this is the one that we're going to do. So let's go ahead and jump into SketchUp. When you first load SketchUp, you're going to be prompted to choose a template. If we click Start using SketchUp right now, it will say that you need to choose a template, so we'll just jump there to start out with and avoid that hassle. For this tutorial, we're going to be using meters because it's just a little easier to translate, given that each grid square along a road that you place is about 8 meters by 8 meters wide. So we'll just use meters for this example, but if you're more comfortable using feet and inches, you can use this as well, and then resize the model as needed. So then once you have meters selected, just click Start using SketchUp. Once SketchUp loads, you're presented with your main workspace here, your trays on the right hand side, and your tools along the top. We'll go over those tools in a moment, but first let's deal with some navigation. Clicking your left mouse button isn't how you navigate, that's how you select objects. But clicking the middle wheel allows you to rotate around the objects that you create. If you want to pan, you can hold the Shift key, click the middle mouse wheel, and pan around your objects. And if you need to zoom in and zoom out, you can do that with the mouse wheel as well. For the tools, we have our Select tool that allows you to select objects that are sitting out in your workspace. The Erase tool allows you to erase lines or faces that you've created. The Lines tool allows you to draw either a straight line, or you can freehand a line. The Arc tools allow you to draw various arcs. And the Shapes tool allows you to draw a few different shapes. You can draw out a rectangle, rotated rectangle, a circle, or a polygon. With the Rectangle tool, it works the same as any of the other tools. You click once, move the rectangle out to the size you want, click again, and that creates the rectangle. All the Rectangle tool is doing is drawing 4 lines and then applying a face to it. So you can really do this with the Line tool as well. We can grab this line, and that'll create that face as well. You can do it with Freeform Lines tools as well. Just like that. The next tool in our toolbox is the Push-Pull tool. This allows you to add dimension to any face that you create. So with our rectangle tool, or with our rectangle that we created here, we can highlight over it until it gets that dotted grid, click once, and move our mouse in any direction. And it'll give a little bit of dimension to our object. The Move tool allows you to move faces, you can move lines, or you can move entire objects by selecting an object, going back to Move tool, and you can move that object around. We won't worry about Rotate tool or Scaling tool, but we will take a look at the Tape Measure tool, and we'll be using that some in this tutorial as well. The Tape Measure tool allows you to measure out distances. Down on the lower right hand side you can see the length of that. And if we hit the Control key, we can create grid lines on our objects. Grid lines are very helpful because they allow you to snap to them. So when we're creating windows and doors or garage doors, we can create these grid lines, snap to them, and make all of our windows the same size. The last tool that we'll be using is the Paint Bucket tool. This tool allows you to grab a material and apply it to any surface on your object. So that's an overview of the tools. Let's go ahead and start creating our model. Anytime you create a new SketchUp file, you're given a character down at the origin of your main grid plane. That character approximates the size of a sim in City Skylines. A sim in City Skylines is about 1.5 to 2.0 meters tall, and your character here is about 1.75 meters tall. But we don't need him in our main workspace. We'll just push him off to the side here, but we'll leave him there as reference just so we can see how we're doing with the size of our model. So to move him, we'll, using our Select tool, select him, grab our Move tool, click once and he attaches to our cursor, and we'll just push him off to the side. You can also click and drag, and that allows you to move him as well. Now to start our model, we can see that our house is a large rectangle with a little alcove here for the front door. It looks like there's a couple of rooms on this side, garage door over on the left, and possibly a couple of rooms on the right there. So even though it's shaped a little differently, the roof line matches up. That front eave there matches up, so we know that that roof extends beyond this cove, and this part of the house is the same depth as this part of the house here. But there is that little elevation change, so we're going to need to split up our house a little bit, but we're not going to worry about building out this cove just yet. We're just going to build a simple rectangle, and we'll make any modifications we need to in order to accommodate that little cove with the planters. So push that back off to the side. It's not an extremely large home, so we're going to build a medium-sized home. Now remember, each grid is 8 meters by 8 meters, and a residential asset can be up to 4 grid units wide. So this being a medium-sized home, we'll make it 2.5 to 3 grids wide. So we'll do about 20 meters across. So we'll click on our shapes tool, come down to the origin, and you can see that it snaps to the origin right there with those crosshairs. So we'll just click once, move our mouse out. We won't worry about getting an exact size, but you can see the dimensions down in the lower right hand corner so you can approximate it. And we're going to do about 20 meters by 12 meters. So we'll come in right around there. And that looks like a good size, so we'll click once to commit that. And now don't click again on the screen. We can actually manually enter in those dimensions now that we've drawn an object. So when you manually enter in the units, it's going to apply them to the most recently created object that you place down. So we're going to make this 20 units wide, comma, and 12 units deep, and hit enter. And now we have a 20 by 12 rectangle sitting out on our workspace. Now we need to add some dimension to this. So we're going to use that push-pull tool, mouse over our surface till we get that dotted grid line, click once, drag up, and click again. Now with the sim being about 1.5 to 2 meters tall, we want to build any building from floor to ceiling at about 3 meters. That seems to be a pretty good height per story. So since the most recently thing we did was push-pull, we can now manually enter in a distance and have it apply to that most recent action. So I'm going to hit 3, hit enter, and that gave us a 3 meter high house. That looks pretty good. Looks like he's sized appropriately. So that's good. Now, since there is this elevation change right here, we're going to want to split that roof down, and it looks like it's not exactly 1/3 of the width of the house, but we'll keep it right around there. Right about 1/3 of the house will have that higher elevation. So we'll go to our line tool, come down about 1/3 of the way. That looks good right there. Click once on that edge, and then start dragging out. You'll see that the line is black. That black line means you're not following the axis line there, that green line. So we want to make that line green just by moving our mouse over, and it'll snap to that green face. Now we know we're drawing a straight line on the surface of our object. When you're sitting in funny perspectives, sometimes it's a little difficult to determine if you're drawing a line that's perpendicular to the face. So it's really good that we get that green line there. We know that we're set. Now this roof line also is just cut right down the middle on both sides, and the slope comes off evenly on either side of the house. So we'll just draw that middle line. Now not only do you snap to lines and endpoints, you'll also snap to midpoints. The midpoint snaps to that teal color there. So we can just start right here on this midpoint, click once, and start dragging out. In this case, we want to have a line that matches this red axis here. So we'll just draw it out till we hit the midpoint of that, click again, and now we've created that line. And we want to do the same for this part of the house. So we'll click once, bring it out, and once we reach that midpoint and it snaps to there, we can click again. And now we've sectioned off this roof into 4 quadrants there. And since this side of the house has an elevated roof, looks like it might be a 1/2 meter high. Let's see how that looks. We'll need to push and pull that out. So we'll click once, bring it up to about a 1/2 meter, click again, and then do 0.5 on the keyboard, hit enter, and that raises that roof about a 1/2 meter. I think it needs to be a little bit more than that, so we'll push pull again, and we'll go up 0.25 more meters. Now in this case we just want to do 0.25 because we've already raised it once, and now we know that it's 0.75 meters high. We'll click on this side of the roof. We don't need to do that because it's going to lock to this roof height here. So we can just drag it up, it'll automatically lock to it. You see that we've reached the offset limit. Click again, and now we have that committed. Now it looks good there. Now we want to create the peak of the roof right along here. So we grab those lines that we created before, first by using the select tool. Click once on this line, it'll highlight blue. Hold the shift key, click on that line, it'll highlight that blue. And now we want to move it up along the z-axis. So we'll click our move tool, it'll snap to that line that we created, and we'll move it up. And you'll see you'll get the blue dotted line that indicates you're along the z-axis there. So we want to keep it along there, and it doesn't look like there's a huge amount of pitch to this roof. It being Florida, I don't imagine they have a lot of snow, so they don't need to worry about having a heavily pitched roof. I think that looks good right about there. That's a pretty good approximation of what we have going on here. But we do need to make the eave along on our roof. So right now, our roof spills right over into the face of the house, or the front of the house there, and along all the sides. So we want to create that eave. So the first thing we want to do is go to our line tool, and you can measure this out if you'd like, but it's not imperative to measure. We can just find a point here where we want to start, click once, drag over, maintaining that red line so that we maintain this axis here, and click again. That gave us a good line to follow for around this section. Now we're going to click on this endpoint and go along the side of the house. Now you'll see we want to match this line right here. We want to be parallel to it. So just mouse over to the midpoint and then drop straight down, and you'll see both lines turn pink, and that just indicates that it's running parallel to that line. Now when you get up to the peak of the house, again, we don't get any line to snap to, so we're just going to want to mouse straight up to the end point of that the peak, and then just start coming straight down. It's a little faint, but you can see that blue dotted line again. That indicates that we're coming straight down from that peak. So now we've drawn a line that's exactly parallel to the top roof line, and we've brought it down directly down from that peak. And then we didn't click an endpoint on this. It didn't meet up with any other line, so our pencil tool is still selected. If it's not selected, if we accidentally hit escape and it's not selected anymore, you can just mouse over to that endpoint, it snaps to it, click again, and we'll drag down. Here we don't need to worry about running parallel to this line, because as soon as we come down here and snap to that edge point, you'll notice we get a green dotted line across here that's matching that endpoint. So we know we're the same distance from the top roof line there. We can click there, and that commits it. Our pencil tool isn't selected anymore, or the line isn't selected anymore because we clicked on an endpoint. So we just need to click again here, follow that red axis to this edge line, click there, and do the same here. Let's bring it up, run it parallel, and we have a line here from when we extended the roof, so we don't need to worry about matching up with that line. And here we can just draw a line from here to there, and now we have a line that's equidistant from the roof line all around that edge of the house. So we'll do the same over here, but we need to first drop a line down from this edge. So we'll drop it down, matching this distance here. Again, you can measure it if you'd like. In this case, we'll just drop it there. Now we have our second eave line. So we'll click once, move over, click again, and continue on. There, now we've made a eave running around the entire house. Now there's two ways that we can pull this eave out. We can use our push-pull tool, grab the eave and extend it out, or we can select our face of the house and push it back. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll push it back about 0.5. There, that gives us a nice reveal over there. And we'll do the same here. push it back, and then 0.5, enter. And that's moved it 0.5 meters from the edge there. Now with the front and rear of the house, as the pitch is coming down, we don't have the option that we had before to grabbing the eave and pulling it out. If you wanted to build a patio, it would work perfectly. We can just grab this and start pulling out, but you'll see it's pulling along one axis there, and it's not matching this roof line. So if we were to just pull this out a little bit, we end up with a flat edge there, so we don't want that. We actually need to select the house, the face of the house, and push it in. But in this case, the way that this roof line is designed with this elevation change here, we're not able to select this edge and push it back any further because this face here is blocking this edge from being pushed back. So we just need to delete this face. So if you ever run into an issue where you can't push something back any further, just check around for any edges that you have, or any faces that you have that might be preventing that. Now that we've used our select tool to select those faces and delete to delete them, we can go back to our push-pull tool, select the surface, and push it back. And we'll do the same. 0.5. And we'll do the same on the back. 0.5. So now we have a house with a nice roof line, an eave running around all along there so that rain can come down, hit the roof, drizzle off, and it's not landing directly on the house. But we do have a problem here. We've deleted those faces, so we need to draw them back. We can do that relatively easily with the line tool. But first we need to delete these faces that this made here because we don't want that to be connected. So we're going to select that face, click delete to delete it. We'll select that line, click delete to delete it. We won't delete this because this is actually part of this roof here. But we'll do the same to the back of the house now. Click and delete. Click and delete. There we go. Now with our pencil tool selected, or our line tool selected, all we have to do is draw a single line that matches one of these lines along the roof line, and it'll automatically draw in our face. We still have that midline here, so it didn't do it to the front, so we'll do that to the front now as well. Just click any line, the endpoint of any line, draw it out, click it again, and it'll fill in that face for you. Let's go ahead and use our erase tool to erase this line, and now we can push this surface back. Just click once, push back, 0.5, there we go. And it looks like we now have a little gap here, so let's go ahead and fix that. We'll erase this line here, that we just have one face to deal with. We'll click our push-pull, and this one you can try to line it up the best you can with that line, but it's going to allow you to extend beyond it, and we don't want that. So what we'll do with that edge selected and movable, or that face selected and movable, we'll just come up to this edge right here that we want it to match with, and it'll match that distance. And we'll have to do the same on this side here. We'll delete this line, so we only have one face. Click that face, go up to this edge line, and that brings the roof back to that edge. Alright, we've made the outer shell for our house. In the next video, we're going to go through, push that cove back in for the front door, and create our doors, windows, and garage door.